Hello class 10. We will now continue with the uh, second part, or rather the second part of the first chapter. We had left off where Wanda Petronsky was not present in the class, and nobody noticed uh, that she was absent, and even Peggy and Maggie, they were who sat in front of the in the down there in the front of the class with other children. They were the ones who mostly made fun of her, and Peggy was the most popular girl, and she was very pretty. She had curly hair too, and Maddie was her closest friend. So they found that they noticed that she was absent. Why did they? How did they notice? They uh, they waited for her, and she did not. Wanda did not come that day, and they were waiting for her in the schoolyard to make fun of her, and they realized that she was absent, and so they blamed Wanda for them being late. So now let's go on. Wanda Petronsky. Most of the people in room 13 didn't have names like that. No, they thought, the other children thought that Wanda Petronsky was a very strange name. Most of the children didn't have that kind of names. They had names easy to say, like Thomas, Smith, or Allen. There was one boy named Bounce, Willie Bounce, and people thought that was funny, but not funny in the same way that Petronsky was. So Petronsky sounded very funny to them. Wanda didn't have any friends. She came to school alone and went home alone. She always wore a faded blue dress and didn't hang right. So she was a very lonely kind of a girl. It seemed that she came to school alone, she went home alone, she had no friends at all at school, and she always wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right, means that didn't fit her. Didn't hang right means it didn't fit her properly. It was clean, but it looked as though it had never been properly, or that had never been ironed properly. So maybe she couldn't even iron her clothes properly. She didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. So many girls talked to her. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the worn hard ground. So you know what hopscotch is? When they hop over squares and they mark on the ground, that's hopscotch. And so uh, usually girls play, and I wonder if girls play that now. In India also we used to play hopscotch when I was young. At that time when I was in school, I used to play hopscotch. I guess girls now have different games to play. Anyway, so they played hopscotch, and she used to watch other little girls play hopscotch, and then the other girls would surround her and talk to her. Why do you think they were talking to her? Well, let us see. Wanda, Peggy would say in a most courteous manner, as though she were talking to Miss Mason. Miss Mason was the teacher. So Peggy would say in a very polite manner to her, Wanda, she'd say, giving her one of her friends a nudge. She would nudge. Nudge means like when you nudge someone with your elbow, a little push, give a little push with your elbow. So she said, Wanda, tell us, how many dresses do you say you had hanging up in your closet? So she's talking very politely. How many dresses did you say you have? 100, Wanda would say. 100, exclaimed all the little girls incredulously. Incredulously means unbelievingly. They would not believe her. And of course, this little girl, Wanda, used to wear only one blue dress to school that was just washed and clean but not ironed. And if she had 100 dresses, why would she wear that? So they would not believe her. They exclaimed. And the little ones would stop playing hopscotch and listen. The little girls would stop and then listen to them. Yeah, 100, all lined up, said Wanda. Then her thin lips drew together in silence. Then she would shut her mouth in silence. They said, yes, they're all lined up. They are 100 dresses. What are they like? All silk, I bet, said Peggy. Yeah, all silk. all colors. Yes, silk dresses, yes, and all colors. Velvet too, yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses, Wanda would repeat stolidly. Stolidly means not showing any feeling, just she would stick to what she had said. All lined up in my closet. Then they'd let her go. Then they would let her go. And then before she'd gone very far, they couldn't help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. When she could still hear them, see, they would talk to her very politely, extra polite manner. And then as soon as she turned around, they would start laughing very loudly in peals of laughter. They would shriek, scream with laughter very loudly. 100 dresses. Obviously, the only dress Wanda had was the blue one she wore every day. So why did she say she had 100 dresses? What a story. How many shoes did you say you had? Now, so another time they would say, how many shoes did you say you had? 60 pairs, all lined up in my closet. She would answer, 60 pairs. Cries of exaggerated politeness greeted this. All alike? So exaggerated means politeness that would be stretched too far. And they would be extra polite, which you would really know that they were it was a put on politeness, a show of politeness. And they would say very politely, all alike? They're all the same? Oh no, every pair is different, all colors, all lined up. So Wanda would say, I have all kinds of colors and 60 pairs of shoes. They're all different. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friend, were always the last to leave. So they would be the last ones to leave. Finally, Wanda would move up the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed, hitching her left shoulder every now and then in the funny way she had, finishing the walk to school alone. So she would then she would finish the walk to school alone, and they were always the last ones. Peggy and Maddie would be the last ones. It means they went on and on and on to tease Wanda in this manner. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies. So there were bullies, people who used their strength and power to frighten the weaker ones. So she protected the small children from bullies, and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. If anybody had said to her, don't you think that is a cruel way to treat Wanda, she would have been very surprised. Cruel? Why did the girl say she had 100 dresses? Anybody could tell that was a lie. Now, Peggy was not really a cruel girl, and she would, if she saw an animal mistreated, she would cry for many hours, and she really didn't like it, and she used to protect the little ones. I guess that's why she was very popular. And so, and if anybody told her that she was being cruel to Wanda, she wouldn't agree, because Wanda said that she had 100 dresses, and anybody could tell that she was telling a lie. Why did she want to lie? And she wasn't just an ordinary person. Else, why did she have a name like that? And Peggy would definitely say, why would anyone have a strange name like that? And she's not an ordinary person. She is lying. Anyway, they never made her cry. So they never made her cry. Anyway, so these are the things that she would say. She is telling herself that she would answer like this. As for Maddie, this business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses, how many hats, and how many this and that she had was bothering her. Maddie was poor herself. Now, you know that Peggy and Maddie were inseparable. They were the best friends. And so, but yet Maddie was very much disturbed by this. It was bothering her. She didn't really want to do that, because she was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes. Hand-me-down clothes means somebody else's used clothes. Thank goodness she didn't live up on Boggins Heights or have a funny name. Now she's thinking, thank God that I don't have that funny name and I don't live up on Boggins Heights. Well, Boggins Heights was a poor area where poor people lived, and it was not a very posh area, and maybe it was very muddy. And so she is really thankful in her heart that she doesn't live up there. Yet she is poor. Sometimes when Peggy was asking Wanda those questions in that mocking, polite voice, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied the marbles on the palm of her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing herself. Now, sometimes when Peggy went on and on and on, when she would be mocking Wanda in a polite voice, Maddie would not even look at Wanda. She would just look at the marbles in her palms, in her hand, and she would just play with those, and she didn't say anything. Not that she felt sorry for Wanda exactly. It's not because she felt sorry for Wanda. She would never have paid any attention to Wanda if Peggy hadn't invented the dresses game. Well, if Peggy hadn't invented the dresses game, she would not have paid any attention to Wanda. But suppose Peggy and all the others started in on her next. What was she afraid of? She was afraid that if they don't pick on Wanda, they would start picking on her, that they would start teasing her. And what if that happens? So she kept quiet. She did not say anything, even though Peggy was her best friend. Peggy was very popular in the school. She had all the good qualities, yet she had this very bad habit of teasing Wanda. And how would she do that? With extra politeness, in a mocking tone, in mocking politeness, she would do all that. And Peggy did not dare to say anything to her because she knew that if they didn't tease Wanda, they would start teasing her, because she herself was very, very poor. But she was safe because she was Peggy's friend. So that's why she was quiet. She wasn't as poor as Wanda, perhaps, but she was poor. So maybe Wanda was very, very poor, but still, Maddie was poor. Of course, she would have made she would have more sense than to say she had 100 dresses. And of course, she's thinking, well, I would have more sense than to say I have 100 dresses. Anyone needs to look at her and they will say that she doesn't have anything and she's telling lies. Still, she would not like for them to begin on her. Still, she thought that she would not like to be the next target. She wished Peggy would stop teasing Wanda Petronsky, and she really wished and wished that Peggy would not tease Wanda as she used to tease. Today, let's go on. Today, even though they had been late to school, Maddie was glad that she had not had to make fun of Wanda. So even today, she was glad that she didn't have to make fun of Wanda. She worked her arithmetic problems absent-mindedly. So her mind was not really on her arithmetic problems. 8 times 8, let's see. She wished she had the nerve to write Peggy a note, because she knew she never would have the courage to speak right out to Peggy to say, hey Peg, let's stop asking Wanda how many dresses she has. Now she didn't have the, she's thinking now, should she write a note? But she said she wished she had the nerve, wished she had the boldness to write a note to Peggy and say, let's stop teasing Wanda and let's not ask her how many dresses she has. When she finished her arithmetic, she did start a note to Peggy. Well, after doing her sums, she started writing a note. Suddenly she paused and shuddered. Shuddered means she shook with fear. She pictured herself in the schoolyard, a new target for Peggy and the girls. Now, if she wrote that note to Peggy, and Peggy would now be the next target. And so she is shaking with fear, she's shuddering with fear. She pictured herself as the new target in the schoolyard. Peggy might ask her where she got the dress that she had on, and Maddie would have to say It was one of Peggy's old ones that Maddie's mother had tried to disguise with new trimmings so no one in room 13 would recognize it. And if Peggy asked her where she got the dress that she was wearing, she would have to tell. And it was actually, she was wearing Peggy's old dress, and that Maddie's mother had tried to disguise, and she had put new trimmings, mean maybe new lace or something she added to it, so that no one would know that it is an old one given by Peggy. If only Peggy would decide of her own accord to stop having fun with Wanda. She's wishing, oh, if only Peggy decides on her own. I hope I don't need to tell her that she should stop picking on Wanda. Oh well, Maddie ran her hand through her short blonde hair as though to push the uncomfortable thoughts away. And she had short blonde hair, and she wants to put those thoughts away. She put her hand through her short hair. What difference did it make? Slowly, Maddie tore into bits the note she had started. So she said it won't make any difference. So she knew that Peggy would still go on. Her note would be useless. So she just tore the note slowly. She was Peggy's best friend, and Peggy was the best liked girl in the whole room. But in the whole room, she was the most popular girl. Peggy could not possibly do anything that was really wrong, she thought. And she thought, oh, Peggy cannot do anything wrong. She is so perfect. She cannot do anything wrong. She see all these things that Maddie is thinking, she's trying to convince herself. And because the guilt that she carries in her heart, that Wanda is being treated so badly, Maddie has this thought in her mind that they're doing wrong towards Wanda, yet she doesn't have the guts to tell her best friend that she is not doing the right thing. And so she is trying to convince herself that Peggy is so perfect she cannot do anything wrong. As for Wanda, she was just some girl who lived up on Boggins Heights and stood alone in the schoolyard. And she's thinking, well, as for Wanda, she's just any ordinary girl who lives up on that low area and low grade area where people who are working class and who are really poor, they live there. And she stands alone in the yard. She has no friends at all. So she shouldn't put her mind to her. She scarcely ever said anything to anybody. So Wanda didn't speak to anybody. The only time she talked was in the schoolyard about her 100 dresses. That's only when she spoke. Maddie remembered her telling about one of her dresses, pale blue with colored trimmings, and she remembered another that was brilliant jungle green with a red sash. So she remembered that she was describing her dress as a pale blue dress, and it had colored trimmings on it. And another one was a green one, jungle green with a red sash, or sash is like a ribbon. You'd look like a Christmas tree in that, the girls had said in pretended admiration. Pretended admiration. They pretended means it was not real, but they pretended, oh wow, what a wonderful dress it must be. You will look like a Christmas tree. And so that's how they're making fun of her. Thinking about Wanda and 100 dresses all lined up in the closet, Maddie began to wonder who was going to win the drawing and coloring contest. Now, so there were Maddie now started wondering who's going to. There was a drawing and coloring competition coming on, and so she is wondering who's going to win. For girls, this contest consisted of designing dresses for boys, for dresses. So this contest was for girls. The girls were supposed to design dresses, and boys were for designing motorboats. So they were supposed to design motorboats, boys. Probably Peggy would win the girls' medal. Peggy drew better than anyone else in the room. So Maddie's thinking, well, maybe Peggy is going to win because she's so perfect. She is the best artist in this room. At least that's what everybody thought. So everybody thought that. She could copy a picture in a magazine or some film star's head so that you could almost tell who it was. So what could she do? She could copy a picture from the magazine or film star's face, and you could tell she was such a good artist. Oh, Maddie was sure Peggy would win, so she was sure. Well, tomorrow the teacher was going to announce the winners, then they'd know. So the teacher was going to announce the winners and then they would know. The next day it was drizzling. So next day was drizzling. Drizzling means very light rain. Maddie and Peggy hurried to school under Peggy's umbrella. Naturally, on a day like this, they didn't wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of Oliver Street, the street that far, far away under the railroad tracks and up the hill led to Boggins Heights. So they usually waited at the street went up to Boggins Heights, and they didn't wait there as they usually did. Anyway, they weren't taking chances on being late today because today was important. So they didn't want to be late. Do you think Miss Mason will announce the winners today? Asked Peggy. Oh, I hope so, the minute we get in, said Maddie. Of course you'll win, Peg. Hope so, said Peggy eagerly. The minute they entered the classroom, they stopped short and gasped. Oh, they stopped short means suddenly they stopped. They gasped. Oh, wow, something was there. There were drawings all over the room, on every ledge and windowsill, dazzling colors and brilliant, lavish designs, all drawn on great sheets of wrapping paper. There must have been 100 of them all lined up. There were so many drawings all lined up in the room. There must have been 100 of them. These must be the drawings of the contest. So they were the drawings of the contest. They're thinking they were. Everybody stopped and whistled or murmured admiringly. Everybody was whistling, and they murmured. They talked among themselves. Wow, what beautiful drawings! As soon as the class had assembled, Miss Mason announced the winners. Jack Beggles had won for the boys, she said, and his design was an outboard motor. An outboard motor was on exhibition in room 12 along with the sketches by all the other boys. So the sketches of all the other boys were in room 12, and Jack Beggles had won for his motorboat design. As for the girls, she said, although just one or two sketches were submitted by most, one girl in room 13 should be proud of her. This one girl actually drew 100 designs. Well, she said, although one or two sketches were submitted by most of you, there was one girl who submitted 100 designs in room 13. This one girl actually drew 100 designs, all different and all beautiful. In the opinion of all the judges, any one of the drawings is worthy of winning the prize. Means all of them were so good that anyone were worthy of it. I am very happy to say that Wanda Petronsky is the winner of the girls' medal. So Wanda Petronsky had drawn those 100 designs of dresses that she had won the medal. Unfortunately, Wanda has been absent from school for some days, and is not here to receive the applause that is due to her. So she said, unfortunately, she is not present, the teacher said, and she is not here to receive the applause, that all the applause that they should clap for her. She is not here for that. Now class, let us hope she will be back tomorrow. Now class, you may file around the room quietly and look at her exquisite drawings. So say, now you can look at all the 100 drawings. The children burst into applause. So suddenly they started clapping, and even the boys were glad to have a chance to stamp on the floor, put their fingers in their mouth and whistle, though they were not interested in dresses. Well, so when everybody started clapping, the boys were so happy, like, as boys and most children do. They started stamping their feet, they started whistling, and they started clapping. So that was the way that they were already, actually they were not interested in the dresses, they were just interested in making noise. Look, Peg, whispered Maddie. There's that blue one she told us about. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, said Peggy, and here's that green one. Boy, and I thought I could draw. And you say, wow, I thought that I was a good artist, but look at that, how wonderful those dresses are. So finally, we now know what dresses she had. She had 100 dresses. They were all on paper. The poor girl was being teased, and she stood her ground and she said, I have 100 dresses. I hope that you like still here. There is another chapter after this. We will do it later. Thank you.